to another episode. Welcome to another episode of Men on Trek. Welcome to Season 4, Episode 1. I am Admiral Red Shirt with my two captains, Captains Daystrom and Palpatine. Welcome, gentlemen.
Welcome, Admiral.
It's good to see you.
What do you have for us today, Admiral?
Oh, what do we got? How about a little immunity syndrome? How's your medical insurance? Immunity syndrome.
Better than Vulcan.
Apparently. Season 2, Episode 18, originally aired January 19th, 1968. The immunity syndrome. Yeah. Where does it fall, guys? Top 10, top 20? Hate it? Where does it fall?
It's middle of the pack.
It's middle of the pack.
Yeah. Upper 2/3 kind of. It's a good episode. I mean, compared to some of the ones that are easy pickings to talk about that we don't particularly like. I mean, I can watch it. There's some of them that I struggle with, but I can watch it. I think it's a good episode.
Yes, I agree.
It's a Spock episode, I would think.
Yeah.
More so.
Yeah. It's a Vulcan episode.
Vulcan-centric.
I'd even say, yeah, definitely Spock is in the lead, but it's also a heavy development of Spock and McCoy's relationship as well.
Yeah, it is. I think this is the genesis.
A developmental episode.
Yeah, it's the genesis of that love affair.
And Kirk, as much as possible, maybe as much as it ever happens in an episode, he's kind of in the back of it. He's taking a back seat.
He's not the driving factor.
Yeah, he's the bridge in this episode for the other characters to do things.
Yeah.
But he's not the focal point.
You know, and we looked a little bit at the history of this. This was the first Paramount Television episode that had switched over from Desilu.
Right.
And I think there was a changing of the guard when it came to producers and directors. This is the last use of the director here who did Arena, I believe. I'm trying to think of the other episode. But it's interesting. It's almost like the signaling of the beginning of Kirk becoming this kind of softer character that was showing a lot more vulnerability in the command component of it.
Yeah.
And, which leads down those...
Less militaristic.
Right.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
They moved away from military Starfleet to touchy-feely.
I didn't feel like it was touchy-feely, but...
It's not as hardcore as it was prior.
Well, no, because we were talking about that. That was our initial impression, but then this is still a season that later on gives us Omega Glory, Ultimate Computer. So it's not over yet.
Yes. And also, too, if we contrast this or compare it to, what was the Pike episode?
Menagerie.
Menagerie.
When they rehashed it, it was Menagerie.
Yeah, but the original pilot.
The Trap.
Cage.
What are they called? The cage, not the Trap, the cage.
So we have a similar situation in the very beginning of the episode where you've got the Enterprise that just came back from a tough mission.
Exhausted.
Everybody's kind of feeling exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to see that difference between Pike and Kirk right away.
Yeah.
Because Pike is like, my crew first. Unless there's signs of life, we're not doing this. And we'll get into it, but there's an order from Starfleet, and Kirk pushes back about half a second, and then he just...
And then they say, make it happen, and he's like, well, make it happen.
Kirk's a golden boy.
Yeah.
Kirk's following orders, man.
Well, then, too, because we discussed that pretty in-depth when we did the cage, they're in different places. Pike is, Pike's 3, 4, 5-year missions in.
Mm-hmm.
He's had enough of the rigmarole kind of deal. And,
Right.
And Kirk's still hungry for it. Kirk's still got that dog in him. So
Yeah. But they seem pretty wiped in the beginning of this.
They're tired.
Yeah.
They're tired. Everybody's kind of sleepwalking through it.
Did they tell him? Does Starfleet tell them they're the only ship in the quadrant, or they didn't start using that excuse?
No, they do, because that's Kirk's pushback. He's like, surely there's another ship that can go do this.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, it's you.
Yeah.
And considering what has happened, that kind of tracks in this case. It's not a lame excuse. It's like, well, yeah, we did have another one and we sent it.
Right.
But
There was another ship.
It's Captain Daystrom's. Once again, it's not a theory. It's a proven
it's a
law.
scientific fact.
It's a scientific law now that
Yeah.
you don't want to be the first ship.
Call it the Daystrom second ship principle.
That's it. Daystrom second ship. The DSSP.
Yeah.
DSSP in full effect in here. Intrepid, first through the door. Done.
First in the hole.
Yeah.
So
Do not want to be the first ship.
Nope.
yeah.
DSSP.
So when the episode picks up, the Enterprise is on its way to Starbase 6, fully intending to take advantage of whatever shore leave R&R is available. Apparently Starbase 6 has good amenities, but in the course of heading there, they even note that the Intrepid is in the area and that they had some limited communication from them that had cut off. But they're making their way toward the starbase, and Spock has a, what shall we call it?
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
No, Obi-Wan.
All-around effect.
Obi-Wan Kenobi had a Spock, is what it really is. What we, I mean,
That's
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, let's call it what it is. Roughly.
An Alderaan effect.
Roughly 10 years later.
He received a psychic impact.
Yes.
Across the galaxy.
From 400 voices suddenly crying out and then silenced.
400 Vulcans. That's interesting. That I always thought about this later on.
The wording is very
similar.
precise.
Yeah.
How
Very
is it?
similar.
Why? So my understanding from the Vulcans were more advanced. Why would Starfleet sponsor? I mean,
Why would there be a Vulcan ship?
why would there be a Vulcan Starfleet ship that? And I'm assuming it's a Constitution class, but maybe this is where I'm wrong.
No, the
No, it's
Intrepid was a
yeah.
Constitution class.
Well, why would you as a Vulcan crew volunteer? Maybe they had a huge batch of Vulcan.
Well, there's two things going on in your statement. The whole thing that the Vulcans were more advanced was put forth later in the other movies and shows, and when they kind of dealt with First Contact, they never say that in the original series.
Okay.
You're never told that Vulcans are superior technologically to the humans or anything like that.
Okay.
And when you're introduced to them in the original series, everybody more or less seems to be on equal footing. And then rolling into that idea, one of the ships in Starfleet has a Vulcan crew. As a member planet, that kind of tracks. That's not outside the realm of possibility.
Well, that makes sense because I'm just thinking, if it's like your team Ferrari and you've got to get into a Kia.
Yeah.
I mean, that it was just always strange, and I think that's true. I didn't put that together until later on, where you're basically told that the Vulcans were much more advanced.
In later iterations, we were told they're much more advanced.
Because on Enterprise, the Enterprise series, TV
series, they definitely did.
It looks like it's not night and day, and I don't know why a Vulcan would agree to serve on a Constitution
They
as an
wouldn't.
en masse, the whole crew.
They wouldn't. And then as it was pushed in bad reboots, Star Trek, that the Vulcans looked down on
Right.
the Federation and humans, but they're full partners in the original
series.
show.
Yeah.
Where in the Enterprise shuttles around ambassadors.
Yeah.
So it's not just an Earth thing.
It's
the
a Federation thing.
Is literally a federation of planets.
Yeah, and really in that context, the Constitution class starship is the best the Federation can offer
At the time.
period.
Wow.
There isn't any.
Yeah, it's the flagship or the flagship design.
Yeah, it's the most powerful ship in the fleet.
Well, unfortunately, I don't have very long to think about what that crew and
that
ship
looks
is
like.
capable of, because we learn very quickly of their demise.
Yeah, they don't live long.
Well, as the good Captain Daystrom pointed out, Spock is very specific. He looks up from his station and in shock and
No, he grabs his head in pain.
grabs his head in pain, and then he says they died. They just died. 400 crew and the ship. He even says the ship died. He's like Mark said, he's very specific. Very specific.
Yeah.
So
Kirk is empathetic and kicks him off the bridge.
yeah, sends him for a medical checkup.
Yeah.
Spock doesn't want to go, but Kirk's like, no, go get checked out. You just had an episode,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody's exhausted to begin with.
And nobody really believes what Spock's saying because there's an interaction between him and McCoy.
There's a skepticism.
You know,
Like, how could you possibly know that?
You mystic, spaceman.
McCoy's breaking Spock's back like he always does.
There's no logic to the statement. There's no logical way that you can feel what you're supposedly feeling. Because McCoy makes it perfectly clear. He says, "I thought you had to be in physical contact
to do all that stuff."
Right. And
McCoy's calling him out. He's like, "There's no way across X amount of light years, somebody died."
And it's interesting that the writers put that in there. And here we are discussing it, almost 60 years later, because it's almost like they always say, don't write your own bad reviews. Like, it's introducing the idea to the audience that this is pretty far-fetched. Mm-hmm. And Spock's answer wasn't, I don't believe that it was really that tenable. It was just, I know what I know.
Yeah, it was, the whole conversation was off kilter. It seemed like Spock was coming at it like he took McCoy's inference
as an
incorrectly.
insult.
Yeah.
First as an insult. And then Spock's response is just kind of, you just don't understand.
Right.
Well, he gets into, you guys easily accept one death. Or no, you fall apart over one death.
No, you fall apart over. You don't fall apart over one death. He kind of takes the moment to take humans to task. He says, maybe if you guys were more concerned about a few deaths instead of many deaths, you'd be better off. Your history wouldn't have been so bloody, is what he says to him.
Yeah, but that seems completely different from the inference that McCoy was making.
Yeah, the whole exchange.
It's a dig.
The whole exchange is very emotional on Spock's part because, one, Spock's offended by McCoy's statement. Shouldn't be. Two.
Right, shouldn't be.
Two, goes hard at McCoy. Hard dig. He's like, oh, and by the way, you bloodthirsty monkeys.
Yeah, yeah, but I don't believe in your space mumbo jumbo, dude. I believe in your Jedi ways.
Well, and McCoy, but McCoy says it to him like, hey, I don't. He's like, McCoy tells him, you're right. I don't understand because I don't understand the whole thing. So I'm asking you, how is this possible?
And Spock comes back with, well, you bloody humans.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, you
murdering humans.
Yeah. And I think there was this, I remember as a kid, I always thought the best episodes were when Spock was showing emotions.
A little bit, yeah.
Like, I was always rooting for him to be more human.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like the more human he was, like in this case, like you said, the response didn't seem very logical or non-emotional.
Yeah, it was an emotional.
It's
reaction.
almost like that trope became how they could sort of interlace him with McCoy more.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because there's a statement towards the end we'll get to, where he's basically asking McCoy to do something for him,
mm-hmm.
and McCoy doesn't do it.
Yeah.
So
just spiteful.
Right. So it's like
mad.
That interplay can only come into force the more Spock shows human emotions, and McCoy is more involved than with him in the story. The more logical it seems that Spock is, the more that Kirk plays into that.
Mm-hmm.
Because throughout the episode he's telling him, I don't have an answer because I don't have data.
Yeah.
And Kirk's like, that's not your job.
Your job is to have an answer.
Exactly.
He's like, you're my walking computers. Spit something out. Tell me something.
So from that standpoint, the writing actually for Spock was very multi-dimensional because it was playing off to McCoy's human sensibilities, mm-hmm. but it was also playing off to Kirk's need for a science officer to be logical and provide him with answers.
Right.
Yeah.
Kirk's looking for Spock to be the Spock he's Spock he knows. He's looking for him to figure it out, to be objective and to step back from it.
Yeah, but if you don't have any information, you don't have any information.
Right. That's the thing.
That's the rub. I can't.
Well, he does ask.
I can't create numbers out of thin air.
Well, he does ask him at one point. He says, "Speculate." In other words, make something up.
And Spock's like, I can't. I just don't have. I got nothing.
Right.
Right. It's probably the only time Spock's got nothing. He's just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. McCoy. Well, I'm jumping ahead, but McCoy in this episode is probably more than anybody the one who gives them the answer. And then inadvertently, almost McCoy and Spock working together gets you where you need to be.
Yeah, it's one of the first episodes that I remember seeing that triad, and that that you can't really have somebody in charge when those three are going at it, because there's one point where McCoy kind of steps forward and says something that the audience is thinking.
They play off each other real well.
Yeah.
And as we said before, McCoy is like the audience. He's giving you pretty much the audience point of view, the human perspective.
And
Kirk is giving you the military perspective, the duty perspective. Spock is giving you the pure logic perspective. And out of that, my duty, the logic, there's always the human perspective of how I feel and whether or not I'm going to let my feelings override duty or logic.
Yeah, McCoy is always giving you that knee-jerk, relatable reaction that probably most of the time is what we would feel first pass.
Right.
Oh, I'm not doing that. That's crazy. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that or whatever.
Well, he actually tells the captain. But let's break down. Let's get into
So McCoy and Spock have their exchange. Spock declares that the Intrepid is dead. Nobody's really buying it. And then they cut back to the bridge, and immediately Starbase 6 comes on and says, hey, divert to Gamma 7A. We sent the Intrepid to investigate an anomaly because we lost contact with the system. A heavily populated system, by the way. They specifically say solar system. Heavily populated solar system is, we don't have contact. We sent the Intrepid, and we just lost contact with the Intrepid. Go check it out. Kirk's like, hey, we're exhausted. Surely there's someone else. Starbase 6, nope, it's you.
Break out the stimulants.
And you're going.
No, you want to be Admiral? Get there.
That's right. That's right.
You're going.
Yes, sir. I have another. And this is where Chekhov takes over the science station, right?
Yeah, Chekhov goes to the science station. This episode does something else I just noted as we were reviewing it. This episode does a real good job of kind of giving you a better sense without stopping the whole show and explaining it, probably like they would in a modern show. The long-range sensors get a very kind of clear idea of how they work. Like, one, the range on them is ridiculous, but two, what they can get. Because what Chekhov does, as soon as Kirk says we got to go to Gamma 7A, Chekhov goes to the science station and looks at the system through the long-range sensors and immediately goes, Captain, Gamma 7A is not there. Gamma 7A is dead. Exact words. Kirk's like, what are you talking about? That's a system with billions of people in it, or billions of life forms in it. What are you talking about? They double-check the scan. They look again.
Kirk actually says something about the size of Gamma A's sun.
Yeah.
He says it's a fourth magnitude star.
Right. Stars out. No life signs on the planets, and they know the planets are habited. And then as a subset to that, because I was thinking about it, we always focus on the Intrepid gets destroyed in this episode.
Yeah, but the whole star system, whole solar system.
10 seconds of subtext, billions of people are gone.
Yep.
Right.
The Intrepid is a small part of that.
Yeah, but they're Vulcans.
Well, it's the Intrepid. It's a Starfleet ship. We're focused. But yeah.
That's interesting because later on in the episode, I think it would have been easy to write in that when they got close enough or whatever that they could have seen the remains or the. I mean, I don't necessarily think the ship exploded or something. It just lost all power, and everyone on there lost all power. So you could technically,
theoretically,
you could might
Intrepid
see it.
could have been embedded in the amoeba's body because they said there was space debris and other things.
Oh, did they say there was space debris? Oh,
they said there was debris embedded in it.
Okay.
I almost wondered in the remaster if they were going to do it. I almost wondered, but there's no dialogue saying there's the Intrepid, so could they?
Right.
But I was almost half looking for it.
Yeah.
Oh, and let's talk about that remaster for a second. Okay. Every shot.
Beautiful.
That opening pan, what'd you call it, a dolly shot?
Yeah.
That opening pan across the Enterprise, beauty.
That's the in-house Paramount team that did that.
Yeah. But what's interesting, as Palpatine was saying, you don't think too much about, or as you were saying, Admiral.
The Admiral?
Yeah, you don't think too much about the billions of people whose lives are lost.
It's 10 seconds of dialogue and they move on.
It goes right overhead.
But you spend the rest of the episode talking about the Intrepid.
Kirk does try to sell it right before, and it goes to a commercial break. So I think,
it's a heavy note.
Yeah, the way that it was designed to be broadcast, you would have gone right into commercial, and people would have been thinking, "Oh my God, a billion people died."
The original broadcast, it's billions of people just died, dun dun dun, and it cuts to commercial, and you're like, "Whoa!" Yeah. But watching it commercial free streaming, it's just kind of like billions of people just died, and next scene.
Yeah.
So that's a little different.
They head off at Warp 5.
Yeah. Kirk orders Warp 5. What I noticed at this point is Mr. Kyle has dumped his red coveralls in the transporter room and has gone to Operations Gold and is running the helm.
Yeah. Well, we got a George Takei light episode.
George Takei free episode.
The Admiral believes, and somebody could check it, but he's probably right. He believes that this is when
George Takei went off to film the Green Berets.
Yeah.
I think this is when he was missing.
Yeah.
To make his Vietnam War epic.
Yeah.
One of my favorite movies.
It's a good movie.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, what I like is how quickly when the station is vacated, somebody else.
Oh yeah, somebody's on that station.
It up. So when Spock leaves, Chekhov goes to science
station.
And someone comes right to Chekhov's station
and takes
no
over.
Station is left
unoccupied,
unmanned.
That station can't be unmanned.
It's like, foop.
Yeah.
Guys like just waiting. Yeah. Hopefully Chekhov's got to go to the bathroom so I can jump on. I can jump on helm.
Give my chance at the controls. So they're going forward. Warp 5.
It is confirmed that the Green Berets was filmed in the summer of 1967. So if this was released January of 1968, makes sense.
That's Tracks, yeah. That episode was filmed while he was off making a movie.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good for Mr. Kyle, I guess. But Kyle doesn't just, I don't know. Kyle's he's good in the transporter. He's good getting his agonizer.
He's a great example of the unspoken continuity they built into the show.
Right.
Instead of having random extra number 2 in the background in various episodes, it is the same people.
He's a named character.
Right. It is the same people over and over again, and they do progress. I mean, from season 1 to this point, Mr. Kyle has left from being a transporter chief to a lieutenant on the helm. So he hasn't opened up any pylons. He hasn't made any great grievous errors. He got a promotion.
But I didn't know why Kyle always struck me as like 40 something.
Yeah, he
didn't seem like he was a junior officer to me.
He looks older than everybody else, whether he is or not. He comes off older.
And he does have an accent, doesn't he?
Some kind of accent, yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he's always there. And they carry that right on into some of the early movies. He's got small appearances in the movies.
Yeah.
So as they're approaching their Warp 5, the next thing that happens is the navigational deflectors come on automatically. Yeah. They detect, they're still, again, long-range sensors. They're still way off.
Right.
But the Enterprise's systems go, whoa, wait a minute. Something's off.
Some physical object
is in our path.
Mm-hmm.
Deflectors come on. They get the readout. Kirk immediately drops them down to Warp 3, and that gives you a sense of how far away they still are. They don't come out of Warp and go to Impulse. They're not in the system.
Right.
But he drops it to Warp 3 because that's I guess a slow enough warp speed for them to react.
Mm-hmm.
And then they move into the area. Then you get the tone. Then you get the sound.
Oh yeah.
No, the sound doesn't come until after they send a probe. So they warp into the area and they see what looks like a hole in space.
Right.
A black area.
Yeah.
Where no stars are showing. There's no real reading because Kirk's asking for information.
That's when Kirk is on Spock.
Right.
What is it? I don't know.
Right.
What's it made of? I don't know.
It looks like just a void in space or a black area in space, and Kirk's asking for this information. He's not getting anything.
Right. Because nobody knows. It's not tracking with anything they can relate to.
So let's shoot a probe into it.
Yeah.
Like shooting a probe is going to do you any good.
When your main sensors can't tell you anything.
But let's probe it anyway. Probe the alien.
I don't have too much of a problem with that because, I think I think Kirk believes in the technology and he understands how it's supposed to work. But if everything was telling me there's nothing there and I see something, I would hit it with a probe to see if the thing bounced off. Like that's all I'm looking for.
Second ship theory.
Yeah.
A ship has already died. I would take into consideration that they followed all the protocols.
Yeah.
Especially being Vulcans.
And it didn't go good for them.
Especially being Vulcans.
I would start looking out of the box. But he sends a probe.
Spock tells him that at one point.
But he sends a probe, and immediately they get hit with the sound effect.
Harmonics.
Yeah.
And that's probably because the probe passed through the shell of the alien.
The membrane.
And everybody got immediately sick.
Half the crew passed out. And those that didn't, they showed the bridge crew. Everybody got weak and wobbly. Uhura almost passes out. But McCoy comes on the comm and says half the crew did pass out.
Right.
And those that didn't are weak, irritable, and nervous.
And it's time to line up for your stimulant.
The Jocko shots.
It's Jocko shot time. Aboard the Enterprise.
You giving them what you giving it to them for free? But
we're not getting paid for it anyway.
Line up for your go.
Maybe they might want to fund us.
Yeah.
I'll reach out.
Yeah. But I just thought it was hilarious as a kid seeing all these people just kind of dragging in the sick bay.
Yeah.
Let me give you your little mama's helper.
On top of them already being tired because they just got through with a difficult mission. Now they're suffering the effects of whatever this is. And McCoy's like, look, I don't know what's going on, but maybe we ought to get out of here.
Yeah. That's a little bit later after the second. That's actually after they enter the dark zone.
That happened before.
No. Well, they entered the dark zone when he was like, "Hey, let's just leave." That's when McCoy's actually. Well,
regardless, the point is that Spock's trying to figure this out. Kirk's trying to figure out why Spock can't figure it out.
Yeah.
And McCoy steps up and goes, "Listen." Basically, what he's saying is that we're about to get buked here, right? So what are we hanging around for? Like. We got enough information. That is, put some red pylons around this thing and stay away from it.
Quarantine this section of space.
Quarantine this section of space.
Yes. McCoy's like, let's see, solar system's gone, Intrepid's gone. We're not doing so good right now. Yeah, I'll call it.
And we just got here.
Let's just cut bait. We've been at this for 10 minutes and we're not doing well.
The other thing that I was thinking about, the difference between Pike and Kirk, throughout the cage scene, Pike was referring back to like why the mission was so tough. We people got hurt, people got killed and everything.
People got killed, there were casualties.
Kirk is just like, we had a tough mission.
Hey,
but it didn't
suck it up.
Yeah, it didn't seem to impact his decision.
Suck it up.
To like take his ship. And there's one when McCoy says, "Let's get out of here." As soon as McCoy leaves the bridge, I think Kirk throws him under the bus. He walks over, sits down on his at the command console, hits the button, and does over the PA and does a monologue. We're here to explore. This might kill us, but that's why we're here. Get to work. Click to back off.
Right.
Get back to work.
Get back to work.
Get your shot from the doctor and get back to your duty station.
Yeah. And in the midst of all this, they're still 100,000 kilometers away from this thing. And they've already lost 5% power.
What's amazing is the next time
the tone happens, or
I think they probe it again.
Yeah, they fire several probes.
Right. And then it seemed like it moved instantly and encompasses the ship.
They never say it, but when you're watching the scene, I got the same thing out of it. They're moving forward They never say they're slowing down, so I'm assuming they're moving forward at warp 3. They give you the dimensions of it.
They go down to 1.
Okay, they go down to 1. But then, like Daystrom pointed out, because I got the same impression, there's almost like there's a merge occurring, which makes sense. They just don't say it.
Right.
This thing is moving forward in space. It's on the same course they are. They're moving forward. But seemingly much faster than they can react to, boom.
Well, the next time the sound happens and everybody gets sick again,
right?
Spock makes note of it that this was the passing of the membrane,
penetrating of the first membrane.
So now, technically, they're inside it.
Right. That's when it goes into the dark zone.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're in the dark zone. They're in whatever it is. At this point, I would have been like, let's back up and let's get out. But they do try that. They do try to go in reverse.
Yeah. And they don't. It takes them a minute to figure out why they're not moving.
Well, it throws them forward, I thought.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first attempt to reverse out takes them further in.
And here we see one of the first writing tropes of this idea of what do you have to figure out.
Right.
Right. Because it's not, at this point, I guess there's this idea that this could be deadly, that maybe this is what destroyed the Intrepid. But the first thing that kind of goes out the window is physics.
Right.
In other words, when we go forward, we've got to go in reverse. So Kirk at one point tells Scotty, well, go forward.
And Scotty's looking at him like, really? You know, yeah. Scotty's not wrapping his brain around it, which, again, the writing, is that our Scotty?
That's not our Scotty.
Is that Kirk's... To me, that would have been a better scene if Kirk spits that out and Scotty goes, yes, and he's just on it. Because that's more in line with his character. But Scotty's kind of looking at him like, real. I guess it's a scene where it's like Kirk's a smart guy, you know, and Scotty has to react a certain way. But Kirk's like, all right, well, you tried to go reverse and we went forward? Throw it in gear and let's go forward.
Well, once again, we first talked about this idea. This is the first Paramount episode, and they knew that they were going to have to be on time with a budget. Mm-hmm. They weren't going to really be able to afford to have a lot of guest stars and stuff. So what I think they started to do...
Probably no time for rewrites either.
Well, what you would have had in a guest star...
The story was structured around the lack of budget, like we were talking about.
What you would have had in a guest star in this episode is probably some astrophysics dynamics person or somebody that has some sort of knowledge. And because you couldn't write that in there, you kind of have to spread that amongst the cast. Like the idea that Scotty wouldn't understand the physics, being the engineer that he is of it, he could have simply just said, when Kirk said, you know, go forward, he could have just said, "I captain," and done it. I mean, why did he have to have this? Why did he have to step up and like almost
question it?
Well, no, like take a knee to Kirk's technical expertise.
Well, the logic of it is it didn't fit any logic.
No.
So when you're talking to the engineer, he's dealing on the base logics of physics as we understand them. But this entity's not falling within that. Inside this black zone, physics is turned on its head. Mm-hmm. So he said, and plus the entity's drawing them further in.
Well, it hasn't started doing that yet.
No, I think it did, because they went reverse. They jumped forward.
No, they went. The jump forward wasn't it pulling them yet. It was just the physics being screwed up. That's how they figured it out. That they hadn't started getting pulled yet. But see, that's the other thing in the way it plays out. By the time they figure out that by putting the engines in forward we can go backwards, they do start to get pulled. And two things happen in this point. One, McCoy calls Kirk and confirms by the life monitors on the ship. Another little point they just kind of slide in there. They're monitoring everybody's life signs all the time.
Yeah.
At least that's how it would have to be for this to work. McCoy goes, hey, since we entered this zone, we're all dying. Slowly, but everybody's life signs are dropping. Mm-hmm. Then they also dropped down to 12% power loss at this point.
It's not looking good. Not looking good for them.
But at least they're not the first ship. They already know something happened to somebody.
Well, and this is when, like you were pointing out earlier, this is when you're talking about the assumptions. Did the first crew do what they should have done? Spock's explaining to Kirk, yeah, they did all that.
But it didn't work.
Well, not only did it not work, because what Spock's actually pointing out, he ends up telling McCoy, there's a certain amount of, I don't want to call it hubris, but their life experience and their culture in this instance kind of was a weakness for them, because they couldn't accept what they were seeing and react to it fast enough to save themselves. They couldn't believe they were in trouble.
They couldn't go outside the logic.
Yeah.
Right. So the physics says X.
Right.
And if you can't go outside of the physics and become illogical, in essence,
right,
you can't fix the problem.
Right.
Because the logic was not working for them, because physics ceased to work for them.
And they couldn't make the leap. That if A, then B, and let's just do
right. It's a transitory statement.
Right.
If A equals B, then B equals C, then A equals C.
Right.
They couldn't make that jump. It was, the logic says A equals B, B equals C, then A equals C. That's the logical transference. Mm-hmm. But if A equals B and B equals C, but C equals B, they can't make that jump, because that's not the logical flow for it. But in essence, humans will hold on. If I'm getting a reverse reaction on this point, I'll just reverse the reaction
on that point.
Point.
Yeah. Tell us who's good at math in school. Tell us in the comments. I'll give you a hint. It wasn't me.
Yeah, that's almost symbolic logic. You know?
It is. Well, it's planar geometry, which I love.
That's what I just said.
Love geometry.
So they have this conversation where Spock's ends up explaining it more so to McCoy. The Intrepid died because they got to that point and couldn't.
Where logic failed them.
Wrap their minds around, one, logic failed them, but two, Spock goes into even their history. He says, we're not a conquered people. The Vulcan has never been conquered by anybody. They never took a loss.
They took a loss this day.
But that's what he's saying. He's saying they didn't have any cultural experience.
There's no fear
to tell them we can lose. We can fail. Yeah. Mm. There's nothing for them to draw on to say we might blow this. We might not make it.
Right. There's no fear.
So in my mind, that translated almost into a certain amount of hubris. But I guess I guess
they wouldn't consider it hubris. It's just a natural fact. Right. We don't lose.
We never lost. So what does that mean? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we're too strong. We don't lose.
And then they now, having accepted that Spock felt their death because of all the other evidence, they said, well, what did they feel when they died? And Spock says, astonishment. And that stuck with me. I was like, oh, that's messed up. they're going out and they're like, oh wow, we really are gonna die. You know, this is incredible.
Well, yeah. I mean, he could have said horror. Horror. You know, what was the last thing? Horror. But I think their death was more of like,
that's a Vulcan thing.
My goodness.
Yeah. It's literally,
look at this.
Yeah.
That's that would be a Vulcan way of looking at it.
It's like, wow, are we really dying like right now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, this protoplasmic nothing is going to kill us?
Fascinating. Also, at this point, you know, our heroes are on the learning curve, but Kirk tells Scotty to go all in, full impulse and warp power, break us out of here. And Scotty tells him they're already down to 60% power, and he's probably got one shot to try it. And they do try it, and it doesn't work.
So they got to go to plan C.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at this point, though, the reason it doesn't work is because now they're being pulled.
Right.
That's too big to be a space station.
Is it? Oh, yeah, it is. It is too big to be a space station. Because then you get this.
God, Doug George. I didn't know he was that bad.
Fun fact. There's only one recorded meeting between Roddenberry and Lucas where people know that they met. There's pictures
really?
and stuff. Yeah. But it totally goes over your head when you're a little kid. You see Star Wars, you're watching Star Trek. He ripped. I'm sorry if you're a Star Wars fan. I don't know why
we are too.
We were.
We were.
7 movies and out. But Lucas drew a lot from a lot of different places, and he was deep in Roddenberry's pocket. I'm sorry, he was, because Spock's feeling the Intrepid dying, and Alderaan.
Too similar.
Same.
And being sucked into something.
Except one guy's wearing a bathrobe when it happens, and one guy's not. But so now,
well, I think it was the beginning of visual storytelling instead of relying on meaningful dialogue.
Yeah,
because
on narrative.
Mark Hamill always tells the story about the dialogue, and that people don't talk that way, and his criticism of it. And I think it's just the opposite with Star Trek. It was the dialogue, right?
Yeah.
Because the visual effects were
all right.
They were used as a way of telling the story. They weren't the story.
Right.
Like Star Wars visuals is the story.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
In Star Trek, maybe because of the limitations, or maybe because they really wanted a more narrative. They had the writing chops. I mean, let's call it what it is. I mean, that's why we're sitting here. They had the writing chops to do it, and bridging it in with some cool effects made it better.
Right.
But even based on the remaster, it's obvious. Would they have liked to have shown you something better? Did they probably picture it differently? Sure. But the narrative carried it.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of stuff in the old series they talk you through, and you accept it. It's good. You don't need to see it because the writing's that good.
Yeah. I think the critique for me is as the different iterations of Star Trek came forward, it's almost seemed like what was supposed to be a big, heavy battleship that was firing cannons, started to maneuver and,
like a fighter.
Yeah, like a fighter.
And it never should have.
No. And it just, I mean, say what you want about scale or the physics of warp speed and this, that, and the other stuff. There was something about looking up. There was always a shot you were looking up at the Enterprise. Even when it was in orbit, it was kind of always up. And then when it fired, it gave you the sense of almost like this airborne battleship.
That's what it's supposed to be. That's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
I mean, we brought it out before. We're talking about Intrepid. The Constitution-class starships, the original ones, are named after the World War II aircraft carriers. That's exactly how you're supposed to picture them.
Right.
Because the upward shot you're talking about is, you ever stood on the dock next to a warship and looked up at the prow?
Right.
That's the shot.
Yeah.
This thing's massive.
Right.
You have no idea how big these things are until you're standing next to one.
And I think those later iterations, when you would see a starship become damaged or destroyed or whatever, I don't know, just in my head, there's something about seeing a fighter going down in flames versus seeing a huge battleship kind of roll on its side. Yes. You know what I mean? Like the degree at which you feel the drama of the failure or the defeat seem to have so much more gravitas. It's like,
of course it does. One's a single guy going down in a fighter, and the other is 400, 500, 700 guys going down as the ship goes down,
or more, depending on the ship, or more.
Right.
In the real world, the ship's with 1,000 people on it. So yeah,
their own McDonald's.
And we don't spend much time for good reason on it, but I just always think about, like, what was it, Wolf 359. 359 when the Borg came in.
The Dominion War in DS9.
Yeah, I mean, you just see these starships flying around like insects. It just in maneuvering in ways that just sort of took that grandeur of the big starship and just turned them into just like
fighters.
Little fighters.
Yeah, you don't get the feeling of a capital ship engagement.
And in fact, isn't that really true with the progression? Because when you get to Deep Space Nine, isn't the captain's ship is not.
Oh, the Defiant's a very small ship.
Yeah.
It's a very small ship.
It's a Borg killer ship.
Well, but the Defiant maneuvering that way makes more sense. It's a ship with 30 people on it.
Right.
And it's smaller than the saucer section of a regular starship. But
to me, there's like this parallel. It's not as strong a theory as Daystrom's second ship. But as the writing decays and the storytelling becomes more trope and cliche filled, the smaller the vessels get in the universe.
because they want to give you that. Again, it's visuals over writing. They want to give you that fast, visceral
candy over substance.
Yeah, they want to give you that fast, visceral
excitement.
Should a ship that large with 500 people on it go down in 2 or 3 shots? No. Those battles should be long, drawn out.
It's a great example for me of like writing that went from pretty good to terrible. So Space 1999 was only 2 seasons, I believe. Mm-hmm. The first one, you had a sense of...
Actually, I think it was only 1.
And they did a second one. It's just pretty unmemorable.
Okay.
But there was a sense that you were moving through a moon base. There were different characters and different parts of all that. And then in season 2, they put them all in one room behind computer consoles looking at a central screen. Like they just fundamentally changed the way that the space was being used so that they could sort of bring economies of scale to the storytelling. So then you look and there's the physician and everybody's sitting in these rows looking up at a main screen, and people absolutely hated it to your point, you can't even remember that there was a second season.
I remember watching Space 1999 as a kid and thinking it was really cool at the beginning. But the stories got weirder and weirder.
Right.
And it got smaller and smaller.
Right.
And it just wasn't, it's like, well, that and how many Eagles did they have? Because they destroyed 6 of them per episode.
Yeah, I rewatched it, and the stories do get super weird.
Yeah.
Super weird. But we're not talking about that.
That's right.
Talking about Trek.
We just did. There we go. Men off track.
Men. That's why we try to stay on track.
I'm trying to get you back on track.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yep.
You can make Admiral someday.
Yeah. Daystrom, buddy.
If I can find it. It's been a minute.
It's supposed to be memorized, man.
Yeah, right. When was the last time I was sitting in front of this thing? But, so, now, at this point in the episode, I remember being a kid, and this surprised me. They've been in the Dark Zone, and I'm thinking the Dark Zone is the story. And then you have the reveal, which in the remaster, it looks really cool. It's very clean. They didn't change it very much. They just really enhanced the look of it. But you see the actual problem because they're being pulled towards it. And the power is continually draining. They can't stay away from it.
The Dark Zone is a secondary effect of the beast.
Of the beast, yes. The amoeba. So now you have the big reveal. And they're still really far away from this thing. But it gives you a sense of how massive it is, and they measure it. And I remember as a kid, I didn't pay attention to any of this. But this thing was 11,000 miles long and 2,000 to 3,000 miles wide, depending on what point you were looking at. That's incredibly huge. That's massive.
For a single cell entity.
Oh, and
well, the diameter of the Earth is 23,000 miles. So, you're Mr. Geometry. So the radius of this, looking at it and looking at the Earth, would probably be the same size.
Yeah.
From this, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like because you're half essentially.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this thing is like Earth size.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you can imagine like it just cruised through a solar system, and everything that ended up in the Dark Zone ended up in the amoeba, and end of story.
Enough for the amoeba to have gained enough energy to prepare to reproduce.
Yep.
It is a possibly universe midichlorian created doomsday machine.
Yep.
Well, no, I mean, to me, that's like we were talking about it beforehand. That's the kind of the horror of this thing. It's not something somebody made. It's not some diabolical machine somebody made to destroy. It's just some naturally occurring life form that just happened to cruise through your neighborhood and kill a couple billion people. It's like running into a bear in the woods. It's
not a lab created virus.
No.
As someone said, a Lovecraftian monster.
Yeah.
Right.
It's exactly what it is.
This thing achieved life somewhere out beyond where they were looking, and eventually found its way through a populated area, and all it's doing is what it does. It's not malevolent. It's not evil. It just is. It's just you went out surfing and you found a shark.
Right.
And that makes it worse. That makes it worse somehow.
Makes it way worse.
You can't monologue it.
The universe, right. You can't talk your way out of it.
You can't talk your way out of it.
Single-celled organism, stop. Do not eat.
I'm getting something on a subspace channel.
The habited world. No, it's going to eat and it's going to divide and it's going to reproduce because that's what it does.
Well, that's the sort of, the MacGuffin in this is that it can become something or nothing, but whatever it's going to do, it's not going to do any good for any of the life in this galaxy.
If it becomes anything greater, it's bad enough as it is.
Right.
If it reproduces, then you have two things that are bad enough as it is. Remember, this thing has already wiped out a solar system, planet, and star.
Mm-hmm. And they lay it out. They say, once they start discussing the fact that it's got enough energy to reproduce, one of them's 11,000 miles long. So then there's 2, and then there's 3, and then there's 4, and then there's 5. If it ever gets to the point where it becomes something greater, you're already gone.
Yeah,
well, that's what they actually say. I think McCoy and Kirk are talking about it, and McCoy says
it's like a virus.
Yeah,
but he says we become the antibodies at that point.
Right.
If we have to stop it to preserve the body, which is our galaxy.
And once again, this is the indiscriminate slaughter of unknown life forms by the Federation.
Yes.
They didn't get clearance for this.
For something as petty.
I think
for something as petty as self-preservation.
No, I think they have justification after a billion lives have already been lost. I'm sorry that the animal did it unknowingly, but that doesn't change the fact that a billion of my people have already been wiped out.
I got no problem breaking that petri dish.
Yeah,
shows you the power of a starship captain.
So it would be different.
Hey,
it would be different if they just came across it. Oh, and it's on its way to such and such, such and such. This thing has already gotten there and done the damage.
Honestly, back into that, what you just said. They do find it out in the middle of nowhere, no consequences, but they figure out what it is still. Do you do anything different?
No, you leave it alone.
Seriously?
Yeah. As long as it's not already on course someplace.
Do you, though?
Yes.
11,000-mile long amoeba that all it wants to do is eat and reproduce. You know that.
But you heard that McCoy does say that there's value in studying it, that there are processes to that. So I'm getting, even though you kind of weren't getting behind my pun of what I was trying to show as a contrast. What's the rush here if there's nothing in immediate danger, and now all of a sudden, like I said, you kind of got a rogue captain that decides, well, I'm just going to destroy this. Yeah. I mean, what happens if you studied some of those processes that were in there, in not that they need it in the future, but a cure for cancer or this, that, and the other stuff, and then kind of like do what it is that you're going to do, but that's classic old Trek. It's a captain comes on the scene, assesses the situation, and makes a call. The only reason Kirk's got any immediate communication in this episode is because they're talking to Starbase 6, which is in the neighborhood. Right, but as soon as they get there, of course, we cut those communications. There's no
No, they're in communication.
Yeah,
with
them
still.
Yeah,
I thought they were subspace.
He tells Uhura to send a report on what they found.
Okay,
but whoever's running Starbase 6 has done the math.
Now so you got to remember that the Intrepid, right?
Yeah,
the Intrepid was sent there
By Starbase.
By Starbase, because they lost contact
with a habited solar system.
With a habited solar system. A Starfleet-controlled solar system.
Oh, it's a Starfleet solar system.
Of course.
It's a Federation solar system.
So we lost contact, go out there Intrepid and find out what's going on, and then we lose Intrepid.
Mm-hmm.
This thing's got to die.
Of course it does. But I'm arguing, in the context of Star Trek, and we've discussed the captain, they're out there on the ragged edge, they're making the call. Going to Palpatine's point, they find it, there's no immediate danger, maybe they do take some time to study it. But in the end, I think if a captain makes a call that this is a hazard to navigation in life,
it's done. It's a done deal.
And it's just going to be a footnote.
See, once again, now so
it's a footnote.
But would a Captain Tracy lead it into Romulan territory?
How do you lead it?
Yeah, that's a little iffy there. So the question becomes, what was the lead time for this thing, and how fast can it move?
It's got to be moving at warp speed.
So if it has like warp 5 capabilities, then you might have to deal with it, because that means it can get anywhere, go anywhere, and destroy anything.
If at the least, once you find it, you have to continually monitor it from that point forward. Oh,
absolutely.
At the least.
So I was thinking of quarantining the area, but
it's moving.
The thing's moving.
You can't. Yeah, to me, I think at the end of the day, once you understand what it is and how it works, you end up at some point realizing you got to get rid of it. It's too dangerous. I don't know of a safe way to let it keep going.
Well, and we know how to destroy it,
right?
Because the episode shows that. Right. I was just introducing the idea that it seems like McCoy is saying one thing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And Kirk, once again, I think is written in this episode. He's pretty like one-dimensional. You know, he's just he's trying to figure things out. Then when he gets the answer, he acts on it, and that's absolutely fine. And I'm not going to say that, this thing isn't dangerous, but when McCoy says there are chemical processes in there that we could benefit from.
Study, right.
And I think maybe at the end of the day, they do achieve that, because, we're getting there.
That's all fine and dandy, but we're dying in the midst. So if we weren't dying in the midst, we could take time to study it. But we're withering on a vine while we're in this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I don't care what benefits the studying it will do. Mm-hmm. If I'm not alive to pass those benefits on, mm-hmm. doesn't matter. It could be the cure to cancer. It could be eternal life inside that thing. But if I'm going to die before we can give it to anybody, it's got to die.
You.
Daystrom.
Yeah.
Daystrom.
Yeah. It always comes back to.
Well, if
we were talking about solar systems.
If I can't transfer the benefit that it will give to us as a people to the next group, because I'm dead, then I've got to kill it.
So don't kill the messenger.
I got to kill it, because nobody will be able to get
What's the intro? To seek out new life.
And destroy it before it
destroy it before it hurts anybody.
To seek out new life and destroy it before it destroys you.
To seek out new life and new civilizations and kill them.
To destroy civilizations. That's it.
I think we're back to Joe. I don't think that's Starfleet. I think that's the Army. But
so I know that Captain Daystrom and I might have been out of the room for the next few moments of the episode.
Yeah.
But this is where they come up with a plan.
Well,
correct?
They somewhat have the debate we just had.
Okay.
But
McCoy and Kirk doesn't, and McCoy makes the point
that there's a benefit.
This thing's a virus. I didn't necessarily agree, but the conversation gave Kirk an idea.
Right. But McCoy's way ahead of him. McCoy's got the idea to outfit a shuttlecraft, go in. This is when he first floats the idea of the shuttlecraft.
Right.
Which Kirk buys into, but Kirk's like, but I don't necessarily think you're the guy to pilot the shuttlecraft.
Well, it's interesting because at that point, I think what McCoy is saying is, which I feel he's saying is that, look, we're kind of doomed at this point. but can we get some information? Can we get it out to somebody?
Yeah.
And then I don't think necessarily that Kirk or he are thinking about this mission can add to the destruction of the organism. It's just let's study this and see if we can get some information for the third ship that's going to have to kind of deal with this. That's the impression I got. It wasn't that if we get you in there with the shuttlecraft, you'll be able to figure out how to destroy it. That wasn't the conversation that I got.
Yeah.
No, that was something Spock came across as he was
in the process.
Right.
And then Spock gets involved in the conversation because when McCoy's idea is solid. Nobody's arguing against it. But Kirk's like, but it's not going to be you, McCoy. And Kirk's kind of thinking that he's going to go. Spock chimes in and goes, you're not qualified to do that, Captain. Matter of fact, as the captain, you can't do that. And McCoy and I have the chops or the qualifications.
He says you're not technical.
Right, you're not technical. You can't. You're not smart enough to do this one.
Right.
That's basically it. Yeah, you can fly the shuttle all day long.
I wouldn't be smart enough. You don't have the scientific background.
Educated enough, smart enough. He's just a knuckle dragging captain ship pilot guy.
That's it. Yeah.
Shoot him, beat him. Shoot him, beat him, kill him ups.
Yeah. Yeah. Wait till the Gorn show up.
Yeah.
Then you break out a Kirk.
Yeah, we're captains.
But which we've said many times is certainly not the case. But so then the debate becomes McCoy or Spock. And to me, this is where the episode gets good, quote unquote. Like we pointed out a few writers' foibles at the beginning and how they kind of get there is a little bit by the standards we've come to expect, it's a little bit weak. But now you have a real dilemma. As captain, Kirk has to order, and I think part of why Kirk comes off the way he does in this episode is I think Shatner's playing that he's affected.
Yeah.
You know,
he's already tired from the
He's exhausted. Right, he's exhausted. And now the effect of the amoeba on him is he's irritable. Because McCoy lays out the symptoms and he's playing it that way. He's irritable, he's short, he's off kilter. Even the nervousness and some of the weakness McCoy talks about. Kirk's experiencing all that while trying to hold it together and do his job. But now he has a dilemma of, I have to send one of my two best friends to almost certainly die.
Well, we're all going to die. One's just going to die a little early.
I'm with you, Admiral. I think that this was an opportunity for Kirk to admit to the audience that there is a friendship there.
Yeah.
And, with a Vulcan, is that supposed to make sense? It doesn't. To McCoy, you get it. Get that. But he's introducing the concept here, at least for me, the first time that I can remember of saying, well, we're more than just shipmates. Right. I'm just more than their commanding officer. This is my friend. But to Daystrom's logic about, well, I feel bad sending, one of my friends off to die. I mean, they're 20 minutes behind him. You're dying too.
So,
well, by the Scotty loss of power clock, they're exactly an hour and 20 minutes.
But
an hour and 20 minutes.
You got to put the Jocko drinks on the shuttle. You got to get that stuff ready. I mean, you can't just take off.
When we talked the balance of terror, we talked about it being a submarine movie in essence.
It is.
In a submarine, you might have to send crewmen into
a compartment
to seal it off to save the ship, knowing that the crew member who goes in there might get sealed in.
Right.
Maybe. Yeah.
And then we'll probably end up drowning. They're all facing a death sentence. McCoy already told them, we're all dying.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We can't get out of it because we don't have the energy to get out. Whether McCoy goes or Spock goes, the difference is who will be able to deliver the
information.
Who will be able to deliver the information, get the readings. Spock is physically superior. Before mentally superior or technically superior.
Right.
Spock is physically superior. So he, separate from the body of the Enterprise, he's got the greater chance of getting the information before he expires.
Well, the big thing is, and as we go, and it's okay, we can jump a little bit. as Spock begins to navigate, and you see him kind of taking the levers of the shuttlecraft and making some pretty bold tactical moves. Mm-hmm. He reduces his life support almost down to nothing. He puts everything into his shields almost immediately. And Scotty goes, if he does that, he's not going to have any power to come back. And I think
he wasn't planning on coming back.
Well, but I think that's the difference between what McCoy was capable of, what Scott and what a Spock was capable of.
Yeah,
Spock immediately started to make decisions about making it a successful mission from the stance of getting information. To the point where he immediately started to make these decisions that were going to positively assure him not being able to return to the Enterprise. And I don't know how McCoy does that.
He's not physically able to.
The human aspect is first preserve thine own life.
Right.
Preserve that. So you try to live as long as you can. Spock has forgone that. So for the gathering of information.
And when he penetrates the shield, he's got communication. It's interesting, the dialogue between them, because the first thing he says is that, my energy's down to 3%. In other words, if I hadn't put what I put into the shields,
I wouldn't have made it.
And then he's getting ready to go to work, and he can't go without a little.
Well, we skipped over when he's leaving.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we got to talk about that because that's important. Because we start to see here this unpacking of this emotional relationship between
Spock and
McCoy, which ends up being, a third major motion picture. Search for Spock. It that fully unpacks this relationship that they have. But,
that's true.
Yeah.
So Kirk makes the call. Says he's sending Spock for all.
I'm sorry, Mr. Spock.
Yeah, for all the reasons that Daystrom laid out.
First.
Spock's the better choice to complete the mission. So in spite of Kirk's emotional turmoil, which may or may not be relevant in an hour and 20 minutes,
right?
He makes the call based on who's the right crewman for the job. And McCoy's mad. McCoy's hating on it. Mm-hmm. And, because McCoy has set up the technical suite. He's the one that had to know how to know what equipment to put on the shuttle, and he's overseeing that. And as Spock goes down to the shuttle bay to leave, McCoy's kind of like, McCoy's attitude is like, you're stealing my mission. You're taking this from me. And Spock's telling him just pure, Spock's a logical person again. He says, hey, man, you wouldn't make it. You just wouldn't. Mm-hmm. And McCoy's like, you don't know what I'd make or not. And Spock asks him, can he give him some, can he help him, or can he give him some Vulcan dignity? Mm-hmm. And McCoy, again, he's like, I don't understand your culture enough to even know what that means. How can I give it to you? Mm-hmm. And Spock says, well, give me one of your superstitious human customs and wish me luck. And McCoy's looking at him like, forget you. And he just stands there looking at him. And
yeah, did you think he thought it was forget you? What I thought was McCoy looked at him and
shock?
No, that he saw Spock wanting to have his human side acknowledged.
Comforted?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's the way I sort of took it.
Yeah.
Because he makes a point that he's half human.
Half human. Mm-hmm. But McCoy, for whatever reason, McCoy hesitates and doesn't give it to him. There's that moment where he's looking at. Yeah, I'll go along when McCoy's looking at him like, what is this? Or maybe he's not quite ready.
Well, in that instance, Spock's human side was more human than McCoy's pettiness of his anger, and it's almost like you see McCoy go from like anger to a bit of astonishment and then almost shame.
Yeah,
because they do cut back to him after Spock starts to walk away, and you see this look on McCoy's face, like
regret.
Yeah.
I'll go along with that. Yeah, for sure.
A great performance by both of them, but especially Forrest Kelly, because he's got to play a bunch of emotions stacked, mm-hmm. and he plays it well. Once again, not blinking.
Yeah, he's the master. He's the master.
Eyes wide open.
He's the master of looking at you. But again, another great. All the work they did on the shuttle bay in this episode.
Oh my goodness!
All the work they did on the shuttle bay in this episode.
It was all CGI.
The launching of the shuttle, the recovery of the shuttle, outside shots of the Enterprise. You can see the shuttle control, which I don't even think was there in the old series.
It wasn't.
They do a lot of work on the shuttle bay, and it all looks amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, went to the trouble even putting, that you can see people moving at the station and everything. It's fantastic.
Those Paramount boys went.
They gave us what
But when you figure your total probably visual effects shots for the old episode maybe totaled what, a minute, 2 minutes?
If that.
Yeah.
Especially since they reused a lot of them.
Yeah. Yeah. But Spock's on his way.
Spock's on his way in. Penetrates the antibodies, like we said, holding back enough power for 3% to the shields.
And then Kirk is monologuing again. There's a lot of monologues in this one. A lot of PA announcements. And he's like, Mr. Spock's on his way. Brace yourself.
Yeah, there'll be an impact.
Yeah.
But again, it's probably because it's that narrative of talking you through something they're not going to show you.
You're right.
And I think this was a good call. They could have sandwiched in a outside shuttlecraft shot showing Spock go through, but by sticking with the original footage and just kind of going through it from Spock's point of view, I think that was a better call.
Right.
So Spock penetrates and begins to send back data, and of course they lose contact with him and they believe that he's been killed. And this feeds into what you and Daystrom were talking about in terms of, at this point, they do think they're going to die. All the conversation, everybody's commentary, Kirk recommending people for commendation.
Oh yeah, he's doing he's doing that final log
entry.
Yeah.
Hey, these guys went to the wall. I got the best crew. I had the best crew in Starfleet.
Yeah.
Comment. If you find this black box inside the amoeba, commendation for this.
You're dead as well.
Yeah.
You're dead as well.
Commendation for this dead person. Commendation for this dead person. We did it. We did our duty till the end.
Mm-hmm.
And even Spock. It's another quasi-emotional moment for Spock. Spock's dealing with his own mortality in the shuttlecraft. He's like, I'm done. I'm going out.
Yeah, we had two autobiographical eulogies. Kirk's almost eulogy of himself and his ship, and then Spock jumps in there. Next scene, he goes, And
Spock's offering his praise to the crew and the captain, saying,
the finest ship in Starfleet.
Finest ship in Starfleet.
Pride, that Vulcan pride comes through.
Yeah.
But at what point does he tell McCoy, you wouldn't have made it?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
When he penetrates the amoeba, the shock of penetrating the amoeba, and they show Spock get thrown out of the chairs. And I remember having a random thought: why no flight? At least in the shuttlecraft, why no flight seats? Why is everybody sitting on the office chair?
Wasn't in the budget.
No budget.
Yeah. But even to think about it,
I think what they did, I could be wrong. I think when they had to do a shuttle shot, they went and grabbed chairs from the bridge
100%.
and threw them in there.
100%.
Yeah.
There was no budget to make another kind of chair.
Yeah.
You would think, though, on a shuttlecraft, at least like in the front seats, there'd be like a flight seat, logically. But anyway.
I would have put a captain's chair in there.
But they made it into the 24th century before they got seatbelts. So,
that's right.
That's right. When you got inertial dampeners, you don't really need seatbelts.
Yeah. There is that. There is maybe the tyranny of the technology. We have inertial dampeners.
J.J. Abrams put in seatbelts.
Well, yeah. But
because that's poor man Star Trek.
That's rich man Star Trek. You know how big that Enterprise is compared to this? It's ridiculous. But
but without inertial dampeners.
No, they do have inertial dampeners. They just get overcome.
They got seatbelts.
They just get overcome every 5 minutes. But they get overcome on the old series too. But
so we get that classic broken communication and Spock's like
giving them the answer.
I know the way to destroy this. You have to do the
click static. and then it will die. What?
Yeah.
What?
Is this episode before or after Decker?
After.
Yeah. Doomsday's first season, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is available on Men on Trek YouTube channel, by the way. Click like and subscribe.
Yeah. If Doomsday Machine's your favorite episode, and why wouldn't it be?
Not only one, but two Men on Trek Doomsday. We have the Redux.
Yeah.
Up.
Yeah, if you don't like the first one, we got another one for you.
Yeah. One of the highest viewed. The Redux did a lot.
Well, when we love it enough to do it twice.
That's right. Just like New York. City's so nice, they named it twice.
There it is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you're into Doomsday Machine, you need to hit that channel and go find that and make yourself happy.
But it comes down to killing it from the inside.
Always does.
Yeah.
When it's too big to hurt on the outside.
Kind of like a thermal exhaust port.
It was only the chroma.
Oh my
the chroma. The chroma.
I never thought of it. I never thought of that.
The chromosomal body was only 2 meters wide, or the size of a womp rat.
And magnetically shielded.
Magnetically shielded.
I never thought.
Well, no, it eats energy. It likes phasers.
That's right.
So what do you got to do? I need a bomb.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Anti.
I think I hurt Daystrom.
George! Gonna make me lose respect in Lucas. What little I had left.
How many towers do you think, Spock?
Count 20 guns.
I said 20 guns. Some on the surface, some on the towers.
Some in the chromosomes.
Some on the chromosomes, some on the membrane. Pick up your visual scanning. Here comes the shuttle.
Arm the magnetic bottle.
That's right.
So, believing Spock has perished,
right?
Much like Porkins, who failed to eject.
Mm-hmm. I've got a problem here.
Yeah, your problem is the amount of donuts you're eating for it to be a fighter pilot. But believing Spock has perished, they're trying to analyze the data he sent back and figure out what it was he was trying to tell them. And Kirk goes back into what McCoy said about them being antibodies.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kirk realizes, oh, wait, physics are inverted here, and this thing eats energy. Because that's when Kirk actually says, this thing would just eat the phasers. It would love the phasers. We can't use them. Which, I'll give them that. They created a scenario where no weapon on the Enterprise made any kind of sense to even try to use it.
Yeah.
And that thing, if you hit it with a photon torpedo, it probably would have had a growth spurt.
Right.
You know. So that was well done. Then Kirk realizes, wait. We have antimatter on board the ship.
And Sir William makes an actor's choice here where he says antibodies, and he gives McCoy a little friendly
cheek slap,
little pop in the face.
No, it was like a friendly. Oh, you good boy.
That's what I'm saying. Like a little something for you.
Oh, that was so nice.
Little schmeckta.
Thank you for airing your thoughts.
Yeah. You go to Gold Star. Take the rest of the day off.
So he runs up there, tells Scotty. Scotty's like, I got a magnetically shielded briefcase of antimatter.
Yeah.
It's on its way.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, like,
we call it a.
Don't you think that might have been a process?
We call it a proton torpedo. We call it a proton torpedo.
Yeah.
Oh, proton torpedoes are not antimatter.
Scotty goes down there, throws the shielded antimatter into the probe, and
see, told you it was a proton torpedo.
Kirk says we got to get point blank range.
Yeah. So
then chromosomal bodies.
So then Kirk tells Scotty to cut all power and let them be dragged into the amoeba with that bit they've been trying to hold off on the whole time. So they basically kick off the emergency brake, and Enterprise gets dragged into the amoeba, and you get some pretty well done shots of the Enterprise going into the amoeba.
Yeah.
Really nice touch when after they get into the amoeba, they show some of the protoplasm smashing against the hull, breaking against the hull.
Yeah.
Like waves in an ocean.
Yep.
Really well done.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Kirk, what do we need? With the power we have left, we need 7 minutes to get out. Okay, well, set the bomb for 7 minutes. And they use the probe, fired at point blank range, to nest itself into the center of the mass, into the nucleus of the amoeba.
And that's where you get the Spock eulogies. Like I sense that I felt the Enterprise penetrate the membrane.
Well, he actually sees it.
Yeah,
he actually witnesses it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's where you get Spock's final words.
Yeah.
And then as they're pulling out,
Kyle, is it Kyle?
Mr. Kyle, yeah. He's like, I'm reading a metallic mass.
It's the Intrepid.
Kind of would have been, that would have made more sense. It's a bigger signal. I'm glad they didn't do it, but I was kind of looking for them to give us that. I really was. At some point in the episode, I was looking for them to give us Intrepid wreckage.
Yeah.
Glad they didn't. Right decision. Kind of wanted it though. Right. I don't know. But great shot of the shuttlecraft floating next to the Enterprise.
Yeah. And Kirk wants not 1, 2 tractor beams on it.
Didn't another large mass that wasn't a moon have tractor beams?
Yep.
Shouldn't tractor beam have been who owns tractor beam? Somebody tell me in the comments, when's the first time you heard tractor beam in literature or on TV?
We know what that is. Who owns it is a different subject.
But no, it just became the universal term for grabby beams.
Yep. Somebody copyrighted Zombie at some point in some game or something, and they just couldn't control it. So they had to let it go.
No, it's part of the cultural zeitgeist.
Yeah,
Which
you can't copyright
tractor beam probably is as well.
It is now.
Yeah.
But in 68, who was saying tractor?
Yeah, but in 68, they weren't copywriting phrases.
True.
Well, and once again, Scotty is just doing what he's told. Mm-hmm. 2 tractor beams, full impulse, get us out of here.
Well, he warns them. He says, I don't know that we'll hold it with our power levels.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I was a touch disappointed in, you have the moment. They're trying to get out. Scotty looks at Kirk and goes, "We have no power."
Right.
All the lights and consoles and everything stay on.
Right.
And it's kind of like, wait, at least give me dim lights and battery power comes up or something. Cut the lights out.
It should have just went dark, and then just in Scotty's voice in the dark, "We've got no power,
Captain." Well, they supposedly have backup batteries, but give me a dim bridge. Emergency lights come on. Most of the consoles go out.
Right.
But one thing they did do, and I think the CGI crew did this. I don't think this is in the original episode. When they're getting out and the explosion goes off and they're rocked out of the
you wanted to look at that. Yeah.
The consoles on the far wall, which is the main thing in the shot, all go out for a second.
Okay.
And I think the CGI team did that. I don't think that's in the original episode.
Because all the original would have to do with practical effects, just unplug the damn thing.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, though. If the Enterprise survived the antimatter explosion pretty much unscathed, did you really need to... I mean, did you need to tractor the shuttle craft? In other words, was it going to be too close to the nucleus, and that's why they both survived?
The shuttle has no power. If you don't tractor it, you leave it behind close to the explosion.
Too close to the explosion. Okay.
Yeah, that's the logic.
Because I'm like, they get thrown out of it when the shuttle got thrown out of it.
Now the other foible is, where'd you get power for a tractor beam with 2 minutes of main power left?
Well, yeah.
Well, it depends on the main power deals with one system and the tractor beam deals with another. Remember, on the old ship, you had the generator, the impulse power, which was a completely different
system than the warp
system of power from warp power.
That's still true even as they carry it forward. They're not fed from the same system.
Right. So, although I don't have power for warp engines anymore, doesn't necessarily mean I don't have power for basic life support.
Yeah. Plus, there are a certain amount of batteries, supposedly. It's just a question. I was just something I was thinking about. Now, once the explosion happens and you got forward momentum, if you're not killed in the explosion, then you're just carried out of the mass at that point.
And then Kirk's like, reaches out, or Spock does. And Kirk goes, "You're alive, Mr. Spock."
Well, McCoy says prior, he says, I don't know if it's something just my human point of view, but I believe Spock's still alive.
Yeah, he's like, I feel like Spock's still alive.
And that takes us back to what?
Star Trek 3.
No, Spock feeling.
Oh, the great line
of the Vulcans, and McCoy feels that Spock is.
McCoy's intuition tells him that Spock is alive.
But a great McCoy line, which is like probably a meme somewhere or something. Spock says, "Don't try to save me. You're going to jeopardize the ship." And McCoy goes, "Shut up, Spock. We're trying to rescue you," which I think is in Star Trek Darkness. What's the movie?
Into
Darkness.
Into Darkness, where the same thing. He's in the volcano, and
he says, "Shut
McCoy
up, Spock."
says, "Shut up, Spock. We're trying to rescue you."
Yeah. Also, and we kind of talked to it and back again, but even as when it looks like Spock's going to die inside the amoeba, he tells Dr. McCoy, he takes that last dig. You should have wished me luck.
Should have wished me luck.
Yeah.
And there was no final moment scene, was there? Or was Captain Daystrom and I out of the room?
Yeah, the final moment scene is they're pulling Spock back into the shuttlecraft bay, and you get another great shot of the shuttlecraft bay.
Yeah.
My favorite thing in the episode. But McCoy gets on Spock talking about, well, basically, shut up, smart guy. You botched some of the tests.
Yeah.
You messed up the
acetylcholine
test.
Yeah.
So don't think you did such a great job. You know.
Yeah. Well, I was dying.
Yeah,
that's right.
While I was holding my breath, flying shields down in a shuttlecraft, and you would have been a corpse on the floor.
Yeah.
Doctor. But
there's a lot of digs between the two.
But I think it did a lot of the groundwork for
the relationship.
Yeah, I mean, this is a real relationship building episode. So
yeah, if anything, it might be the point in the series where Spock and McCoy kind of move past having maybe some real animosity towards each other to just kind of having that friendly relationship where they got that back and forth. This might be where they actually move into being friends.
Yeah.
Because up until this point in the series, they're both Kirk's friends, but they're not necessarily each other's
Right,
friends.
Exactly.
Necessarily.
And I think the another episode that does that well is, remember that episode with the empath?
Yeah, the empath chick.
Mari?
Yeah.
And they have to, they're in that underground, and they have to make decisions, and they say, well, though Mr. Spock will not die.
It's the same type. It's the same type of thing. Who will be tortured?
Right.
And McCoy ends up doing it. Mm-hmm. But it's the same scenario. So it's like Kirk's in the middle, and you have an angel on one side and a demon on the other. Mm-hmm. You have his emotions on the left where McCoy is, and logic is on the right where Spock is.
Well, McCoy
Kirk's in the middle.
Yeah, well, McCoy actually is a lot of times is empathy.
It's still emotion.
I know.
Yeah. So a good episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good episode.
And as we enter into season 4, the good episodes are going to become a little less prevalent because we're
I don't know.
Kind of left.
There's still a lot of good episodes. They're just not in the top 10 or top 20.
Yeah, but there's some rough episodes ahead for us.
To be fair, it's not that the good episodes are gone. We selfishly did our favorites first,
which very much aligns with
everybody else,
with what everybody else.
So now we're going to get into
underappreciated episodes.
Yeah, the ones that are not as well loved by us and apparently everybody else.
I bought one of those digital. I was looking at cable, and the price is ridiculous. So I bought one of those $39 high-def broadcast antennas, hooked it up to my TV, and now I get MeTV and all these basic channels, and Star Trek is on every night now for me again, like when I was a kid. It's on every single night. And then they do The Next Generation, Deep Space, But there was an episode with the Kelvins, and I was watching it, and I was like, well, we're going to have to do this at some point, but woo-wee. Woo-wee. There's going to be some. I mean, if I thought Harry Mudd was tough, I memean, some of these are going to be.
It's going to be good for us. We're going to have to really like pull out our objectivity and talk, because the focus is still the writing, and it's still what's good about Trek,
right?
Old Trek. But we ate the candy.
That's
it. You know, we had our cake.
That's it.
Now we got to get into some vegetables.
Yeah.
Meat and potatoes.
The kale salad is in the future for Men on Trek.
Because there's some.
That's why we're here.
There's some episodes, you know, hey, I don't know if there's an episode I hate, but there's definitely some episodes I do not care about. There's definitely some episodes I'm like, eh.
Yeah, I think we'll remember that you said that, and we'll see some of these because they're the not so great episodes are not
so great.
Yeah, and you don't watch them for a reason. Like the good ones you watch over and over and over again.
Yeah.
The ones that aren't so great, you don't watch that much.
Yep, that's true, but
you gravitate towards certain ones.
But some of them still have points to build the universe.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, we all know this about Daystrom.
Yeah.
He can see a lot in an episode that I can't. I'm hoping
he's got some hot takes on Star Trek episodes.
I'm hoping he's gonna.
The ones he likes.
Hope because Jake's probably gonna be sitting over here wearing the sunglasses.
Even the ones I don't like, I like world building.
Of course,
I like the thought of what is generated by little bitty pieces added together to give you the overall view of the universe that you're in. And what's beautiful is when it's not done by exposition. It's done by just little pieces of things that are given without someone giving you a big data dump of the universe.
Well, yeah.
Dune, the Paja Emperor, blah 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 blah. You can just use data.
Well,
you can just use that, not to take away from the that universe, but you get this huge data dump because there's so much in there that in Star Trek you get a little here, a little there, and it builds a more realistic universe. Because that's how you take the world we live in. You get a little here, a little there, and then you start to lay it together in your own mind.
And considering that they were making up a lot of it as they went, and there wasn't any like overriding continuity, they did a great job of making it fit. In the original series, there's not a lot of it is contradictory, per se. I mean, yeah, they do some little things, and some things magically appear sometimes, but it all kind of hangs together and does build a cohesive universe. It doesn't get wonky until later when people start.
Oh, yeah, and don't get me wrong, because I think the worst original series episodes are
better,
exponentially better than
some of the new stuff.
Yeah, across the board. It's just, we have sort of selfishly wallowed in the best.
Yeah,
and it's now
time to pay the piper.
It's time to pay the piper, and it's we'll do it the credit that it's due. But it's just it's amazing that even what we like about what we would call the best episodes, that there's still enough of that in the worst episodes. To your point, that maybe it doesn't do much for the character, but it continues to paint this backdrop, this world building, and make it richer.
It's like Yay Brother. It's like that episode of the hippies with where I don't think you like it all.
Well, you're talking about existential Stalinism and all this other stuff, and I'm like, I just hate the 4-minute full song. where you don't even at the Grammys you don't get to perform a full 4 minutes.
But that's not the point. The point is the underlining structure of what Starfleet is about.
Right.
Although that's what the episode is about. You got to choke through the hippies, but you get that substance in the episode that you don't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm actually looking forward to going through these other episodes because to Palpatine's point, these are not the ones you gravitated towards to watching the reruns and all that necessarily. But in the court,
not the ones Channel 20 shoved down your throat.
Well, Channel 50.
Channel 50, that's right.
Channel 50.
WKBD.
Shoved down your throat on Rerunville.
That too. But since we've been doing this, there's been certain episodes that looking back on it now, I get some things I didn't get before. I'm open to getting back into some of these and finding out, okay, there's some good things in there. There's some redeeming qualities that young Keith didn't care about because nobody was firing phasers and he wasn't so interested.
So, Mary's with the grumps.
Yeah, that whole thing.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen.
Yes, sir.
The immunity syndrome.
Click like and subscribe.
Yeah, if you would.
Over 100,000 views. 150,000 views on the channel.
And we greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And we appreciate all our subscribers.
Mm-hmm. All righty.
And you can become a subscriber too. So that's a wrap, Captains. Another episode of Men on Trek.
Well, we thank you for the briefing, Admiral. I've got a ship to run.
Do you know?
And I've got to run from his ship.
Because Starfleet is about what? Finding it and killing it.
Transporter out, right? Yeah.
All right. Until next time, Men on Trek, out.